Good morning. When I was very much younger, when I was a child of about 7, I joined a local soccer team. Joined the local club, and the club provided us all the things we needed: uniforms, balls to play with, a field with line markings, nets and posts, all the things we needed, except a coach. In the 2 years I played in that team, we didn't have a dedicated coach. We had parents who were really interested and helpful and did their best. We had friends of parents that came in and tried to help out as best they could. We had some young blokes from older teams who tried to come in and do a little bit with us. But we never had a coach who could work with us and teach us the skills and how to be a team. It was at the end of under-8s that a friend of my parents approached them and said, "Look, I'm going to get into coaching a team around my son who's Jeff's age, and I'm wondering if he'd like to come and join us. I'm trying to put together a group of players who I think could form into a team who I could work with and have a good time. Would he be interested? We're going to do some training and work out through summer, through the off-season, so you can come and try it out. If he likes it, he can sign up. What do you think?" And they put it to me, and I was rapt. Yep, anything to go and play soccer. I just loved it. I played any time of the year. So I turned up, and in that first few sessions, there were a whole group of us. There were some who had been coached well before, and then there was the rest of us. And I wonder what that coach, Mr. McCarthy, thought when he looked at this ragtag bunch of kids. Some knowing what to do and have the skills to dribble and pass and head and trap and all the other things. And the rest of us just running around in circles, doing our own thing and not knowing even positional play. He must have wondered what he was doing. Anyone looking on would have said, "Well, I'll take those 4 or 5 players and the rest." In that earlier team, we hadn't won a game. We didn't know how to play. And I don't think any of us thought of ourselves as being much good. Certainly not a good team and probably not great players. What Mr. McCarthy did was he took each of us aside in this new group, and he helped us to learn the skills, and he helped us to understand what our role was, where our position was and how to play with other players, what the strategy of the game was and how to play together. It took him a while to develop it, but he looked into each of us and saw the potential for what we could be and where we could fit into the team and the skills we had and how we could use them. He helped each of us to understand who we were as footballers and how we could be better. He believed in us. And over the next 5 years, we won the 2nd division, we went into 1st division, were more than competitive, and then began to win the comp a couple of times. It was great fun and a great adventure, and he was probably the best coach I've ever had. He believed in what we could be, not what we were doing. He saw something in each of us that was more than what was there at that time, and he helped us to grow into that. And I think that's the way of Jesus. That's what Jesus does with people. Back then and even now as we follow his way, Jesus saw not what others saw. He didn't see the limitations and the failures and the reputations of people. He saw what they could become. For example, there's a woman caught in the act of adultery. We're not told where the man was, but this woman was. And she was standing before the elders of the town and being condemned. And Jesus comes along and they say, "Look, the law of Moses says this. What do you say?" And Jesus looks at her and them and says, "Look, whoever of you has never done the wrong thing, whoever of you is perfect, not failed or made a mistake, you throw the first stone and then the rest of you can join in." Then he doodled in the sand for a bit and looked up, and they'd all walked off, disappeared. And he said to the woman, "So what? No one condemns you? Neither do I." And go and sin no more is what he says, but it's really go and become the person you can be. Go and flourish in life, be healed. Don't be brought down by your reputation or what others think of you or expectations. Go and be the self that God created you to be. And that's what he does with people. And in this week's story that Luke tells, Jesus is getting closer to Jerusalem, where he will be put on the cross, where he will be humbled on a cross and show us the way of sacrifice, of self-giving for the sake of the world and for God's way. And then there'll be the reversal through this story of resurrection. But on the way, he passes through the town of Jericho. And he's got a reputation, and so people come out to see him, to line the streets and see this rabbi that they've heard about. In the town, there's a tax collector called Zacchaeus. And Zacchaeus is despised, hated. No one likes him because he's a collaborator with Rome, the enemy, the oppressive regime, the oppressive power that's making them pay exorbitant taxes. And he's collecting those taxes on behalf of Rome and probably adding his own cut above, and therefore ripping off his own people, pushing them further and further into indebtedness and poverty. He's shunned and hated. Anyway, he comes out. We're not told what he thinks. You know, is he curious? He's heard Jesus is coming and wants to get a look. Is he just seen the crowds and wonders what's going on? Is he questioning in his own life, his own sense of being, which is he's lost. He's gained the whole world. He's got all this money, but he's got nothing else. He's lost everything else. Is he looking for life? And maybe this guy can lead him there. Who knows? Anyway, he goes out. He's short and he can't see over the crowd, and they won't let him through. So he goes and climbs down the road a sycamore tree. And that in itself is a metaphor, because he's a person who is always climbing to get above, to get more, to tread on others' heads, to get higher and higher and get more for himself. He's always about looking after himself. Anyway, he climbs a tree and he's happily sitting in the branches looking down on everyone, including Jesus. Maybe he's looking down smugly, or maybe he's looking down trying to hide because of the shame he feels that's piled up on him. Whatever. Jesus walks down the street, and when he gets to the tree, he looks up and says, "Zacchaeus, come down. I want to go to your place today." Now, I don't know what Zacchaeus saw or heard in that encounter. Whether he saw this look of love that said, "Zacchaeus, we've got a problem here. You've got an issue. You're lost. I want to come and let's sort it out." Or whether Zacchaeus is thinking, "Oh, here we go. Another important person going to have a go at me." Or whether it's his ego saying, "At least someone recognises that I'm important." Whatever it is, he climbs down and rushes home. And when Jesus gets there, he basically says, "Forgive me. Whoever I've ripped off, I'm going to give back fourfold. And I'm going to give half of all my wealth to the poor." There's been a transformation in Zacchaeus. Not just in his mind, his thinking, but in his heart and his actions. He gives away his money. It doesn't say, "Look, I think I'll do this," down the track. He says, "I give it now." The Greek is saying, "I've given it. It is for them now." And Jesus says, salvation has come to this household today. Salvation, healing, life, restoration, transformation, renewal, forgiveness, whatever word you want to use. Zacchaeus has been transformed in his heart, his mind, and his actions. He's a new person. Jesus has treated him upwards, not as this little rogue, this scoundrel that everyone hates, that cheats and rips them off. But he treats him with a dignity and respect as one who is a child of God, in whom is the image of God, and invites Zacchaeus to grow into that. He's going into Zacchaeus' house, probably the first one who's gone into his house in a long while. His acceptance of Zacchaeus as a person transforms him. Jesus treats people upwards into the way that they can flourish and become, not as they appear now. Jesus does that with all of us. God does that with all of us. This person becomes a child of God. Not because he isn't God's child, but because he recognises that he is now a child of God, valued by God. Just as Mr. McCarthy, though, all those years ago, treated us boys not as we appeared, clumsy and clueless and hopeless, but he saw in us what we could become, and he helped us as footballers to become the best we could be. In a greater, deeper way, Jesus invites us to become more deeply and truly the people we can be in God, to become more fully the people we're created to be, that we can flourish in life and know this deep grace of transformation that is a change in heart, mind and action, that we live into the love and the justice of God in the world.